There's no universal perfect layout you can copy and paste into your game. Space, ground type, and scale all change how you can lay out your ideal village. It's easy to miss just how much time your villagers waste. Efficient workers with a lower skill will accomplish way more than their talented counterparts. The key to getting the most out of every single one of them? A well-planned base. Hopefully this video will change how you think about designing an efficient base. A new paradigm. Dare I say a revolution? I daren't. The best way to think about base efficiency is to go through the path each resource will take as it gets harvested, processed, and used, as well as the daily schedule your colonist will go through. Then plan around these. I'll be looking at an example map for all of this, with dev tools granting you the ability to construct everything instantly without any resources. An easy example of planning out a resources path is to look at food. Assuming you're mostly using crops, food goes from field to cellar to kitchen to dining room, so these spaces should all be close together. Because of that, you want to put your kitchen and food cellar down near a large stretch of grass instead of in the middle of dirt early on, even if you don't have enough seeds to need much space yet. You then want to avoid constructing any buildings in the grass and should instead plan them on going towards any nearby dirt. You also want to put any dining space nearby, or even in your kitchen until you have a great haul. This game doesn't have a planning feature or a way to pause a building schematic that hasn't been put down yet, but you can use a resource you've unlocked but forbidden to help you mark these buildings off. Bee skips can be placed near crops if you're using those, while your kitchen area should be a little closer to an entrance to your base if you plan to use a lot of meat. The path metal takes is a little less obvious, but it's incredibly important. You'll be outfitting everyone in hundreds of ingots worth of armor, some of your villagers in even more in weapons, and then replacing damaged gear over time. That's thousands of ingots produced and used over the course of the game. Iron ore is moved from wherever it's mined to smelters where it's turned into either iron or steel ingots. Steel is more efficient, but it takes more time to unlock and can be worse for some goods like mechanical components. Ingots are taken from your smelters to a workshop with a forge or an armorer's station where they're made into goods. Mechanical components can be stored nearby, but the gear needs to be hauled to an armory. Storing your armor is especially important, as you'll need some place to unequip the heavy gear that reduces movement speed and helmets that stop you from wearing stylish hats. Both of these are equally important facets of a well-functioning society. If your base is walled off and only has one entrance raiders will try to attack, an armory near there will let you store your full suite of weapons and armor. If you have multiple egresses, you should establish an armory closer to the center of your base until you either have enough sets of armor and weapons to keep separate armories at each entrance, or until you only have one entrance. To facilitate all of this, put your smelters near this entrance and your workshop as close as you can manage. This will minimize the running you need to do to bring iron in, move the ingots once they're made, and move the ultimate goods once they're created. Clay and limestone have a similar path. Assuming you don't have a vein you can dig these up from inside your base, you'll be hauling them back from outside. It can make sense to actually establish your base close to one of these veins if you're choosing between two otherwise similar locations. If you plan to use bricks for your defenses, or just for the aesthetics, a kiln or stonemason's bench near your entrance will do wonders for quickly processing them. The latter fits nicely into a workstation with your forge and armorer's bench. Either way, there's no reason to move these bricks to a new zone immediately unless you desperately need more space inside. Regardless of if you're using bricks or the raw materials themselves to build, you don't need to store them anywhere until you're actually building. Once you are, haul them to a zone near your new project for use. The path for clothing material looks similar regardless of whether you're using cloth, leather, or both. Your butchery table in the kitchen should be near your crops. Leather from chopping up animals and linen from flax thus start close to each other. A workshop for a sewing station nearby can easily process this into clothing. This can be a second workshop, as the cost to make a second is a measly 20 wood and a small room. You're generally going to want to store your finished clothing out of the way, since you only need to make and store a modest number of outfits, and your colonists only need to visit to change twice a year. Wood and fuel are perhaps the most interesting path. While other resources have a very linear series of events, fuel needs to go to a litany of buildings. Cooking, metalworking, smelting, and braziers all over your base needed. You can have one tree farm near what eats the lion's share of your fuel, the smelting and metalworking operations, but if there isn't space there, or if you want to be a bit more efficient, or if you just like the look of trees everywhere, you can have a modest farm near the entrance and metalworking operations, but smaller patches throughout the rest of your base. Now that we've covered building for goods, let's look at building around your people's schedule. People eat 1 meal per day. They also go through about 60% of their religious needs, 45% of their entertainment needs, and 45% of their raging alcoholism every day. When they hit 20 to 40% on these, they'll work on them instead of working on their projects. But this can mean traveling a huge distance from their workstations to the backgammon tables or shrines that you have. Now you could have a lot of these throughout your base, but an easier and tidier option is to set all of your citizens to have an hour or two of leisure after they wake up. 1 hour will let them eat and top up 1 or 2 of their other needs, while 2 hours will let them top everything off but might mean that they're wasting some time. This will have the added benefit of keeping them high on these stats and thus getting mood buffs for most of the day. Because of this, you want your bedrooms to be near shrines, entertainment, and the Great Hall. From that cluster, they'll head to wherever they're working for the day. And now for some final tips. Keep your internal doors open as much as thermal insulation allows. Villagers slow down when opening a door, and though it's brief, the delay from opening hundreds of doors every year adds up. Add more doors and stairs wherever you can. They cost a bit of extra wood or other building materials, but not having to run all the way around the building helps, especially when it's repeat trips, like for your kitchen. Put in flooring on all major paths. Wood or sticks at first, then bricks when you can afford it. Villagers travel faster on these than they do on dirt floors. You can even build these out from your base towards nearby mines. Lastly, rushing decorative structures might seem silly, but it gives a 20% boost to most of your production buildings. If you don't need other technologies at the moment, it's a good investment at only 15 chronicles. If you've enjoyed this video, a like goes a long way to showing me that it's been helpful. But a well-designed base doesn't do much if it isn't worked by efficient villagers. Check this other video I have out if you want to better understand how to set yourself up for success.